No, that's 100%. Like once the fear crept in, I was like, I knew I was on the downward. And it just, 20, I think I peaked strength wise at 26, 27. So that was after 6, 7 years on PEDs. And at that point, there was a lot more joint pain, a lot of inflammation from all the years and such. And I just wasn't getting as much out of the PEDs because I would just kind of, I would do like after a meet, I'd just go, okay, I'll cruise for like 2, 3 weeks at 250, mix the test, and then you just jump right back into it. So there was never really a break. I think the receptors, I don't know how true that is as far as the science, but it definitely felt like there was a um, down regulation of the receptors where I wasn't benefiting as much. And it just, everything kind of got tougher. So that played a role too. I just felt like I wasn't getting as much out of them.
Yeah, and just to circle back to the injury, what did rehab look like for you? How long was that?
It took about 8 weeks to where I was like walking without limping again. But I got an MRI. I dodged a bullet. It was a partial tear. It wasn't like anything
Okay.
fully tore and needing surgery. So as loud as that was, and as much as I felt it, I dodged a major bullet. So I just kind of had to wait. And I think I did like the whole BPC 157 TB 500 thing, which definitely I feel like helped expedite the process. But um,
How long did you do that for?
couple weeks. I think I did about, I was crazy. I just take a bunch of bottles of it and shoot the whole thing um, into the injury site. But yeah, eight
Yeah,
weeks later, I want to say I was back to walking normal, and then I kind of got back into a little bit of
yeah,
sparring.
I want to chime in on the injury thing too with the medical professionals. I feel like they just treat bodybuilders and powerlifters with such a negative attitude. Because I remember when I tore my quad, uh, so my quad was torn. I could stand up on that leg if my leg was straight. I could not bend the leg more than about 10 degrees. I mean, I maybe I could. I don't know if it was the pain stopping it but you went more than 10 degrees and the pain was excruciating. But I went in the doctor and they tried to bend my leg, and it wouldn't bend. And like I'm like yelping out in pain. And then I hear the nurse and the doctor, they're kind of on the other side of the room, like they think I can't hear me. And they thought I wanted pain pills. And I'm like, you could give me a pain. I'm not going to take them. I'm not filling the prescription. I want my leg fixed, you
right.
know? But it was like just the whole time I was in there, they didn't care about the injury. They were all trying to find, like, what's this guy like I had some kind of ulterior motive of getting in to get Vicodin or something. And he would like, I finally I pissed. I told the guy, I was like, you can write me any script you want. I'm not even going to fill it. I want my leg fixed.
Right.
But they nothing. They did nothing.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have a few. I never had any major injuries, but a few PTs that were also lifters, and that when I met a few of them, I mean that was a life changer. And but I had some similar experiences when I did tweak my lower back, and the doctor's like, "Are you getting paid to lift?" And I'm like, "Do you say that to people who come in here and smoke and drink
Yeah.
and whatever? Like,
And
do you say
are
that to
overweight.
them?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Come on, man! Like, no, but I enjoy it. Like, what do you mean?"
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, anyways, we can go off on a tangent about that, I'm sure, all day, but that's not the purpose of the thing. But so so went through recovery, how's it? So it's been about 2 years natural. Did you say, or three? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's been 25 months, and
Okay. Have
I've
you
gotten so
competed in
much
that time
closer.
frame also, or just training?
Yeah, I've done like push pull meets bench deadlift. Haven't done full power yet because I thought my hip was shot, so I hadn't squatted in almost a year, and I'm just getting back into that. But it's been almost an experiment in a sense because I don't really know anyone who's like done it, who's kind of been at the top, so to speak, come off everything and then kept going. So I wanted to see what would happen. I want to see if I could recover my natural test levels, which I'm not so sure I can at this point, even though I did the PCT, HMG, HCG, all that stuff, maybe not long enough. But I'm not sure it's going to come back, but it's all an experiment, really. Like people always say, well, just jump on HRT. And I'm like, I get that. Like I could go 5 minutes down the street, not even 2 minutes, and
Right.
get, because there's a great doctor there, get a script for HRT. But I'm like, I'm kind of just trying to see what happens. Like this is a whole experiment, and I kind of have something to prove to myself to see how strong I can get without it, even with my levels being trash. But
Sure.
that the health parameters on the blood work have all come back, very well. I get things checked every couple months now because I'm just fascinated by it more or less,
Yeah.
and it's been fun. It's been a
Any
cool journey.
changes to lifestyle or nutrition to try to adjust those, or has that been pretty much consistent from before?
Yeah, I've tried different diet experimenting. Like, okay, I'm going to eat a lot of beef. I'm going to eat a lot more eggs. See if that brings up the testosterone levels very minimally. It didn't seem to have a major effect. I've tried, some of the natural test boosters. Maybe not for long enough, but I played around with like Fedosia, Agrestis, and stuff like that. Got like 100-point bump, but nothing that sent it into that. I haven't hit 500 yet nanograms per deciliter,
Sure.
which the average test level is 531 for someone,
How
I
old
haven't
are you,
even come
Pete?
up with that. 31.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's
well, that's the other difficult thing is those average levels are, I mean, the average 35-year-old today has testosterone levels that I can't remember the exact number. The average like 72-year-old had 50 years ago.
Right.
There's a lot of additional things that we just don't really understand yet. We don't know we don't understand everything that relates to testosterone. And if you think in the wild, when do deer get their antlers? They get it during mating season. There's like a rise in testosterone, and along with that they fight, because in the summer, in the spring and summer, deer, the male deer will hang out in bachelor groups. They'll be buddies. There's much lower testosterone. They don't grow antlers. There's no like aggressive nature. And then when the women go on estrus, then they start growing antlers, and their testosterone increases, and they fight other deer. Then they're all solo. If they see another buck, they'll fight. And then elephants, when they go in the musk, they'll actually leak testosterone, and you'll see this oily substance come down kind of like behind their ears, and it's all very cyclical. We don't have that because we may have at one point as humans, but we don't have like a mating season. You think like for most animals, they'll mate like in the fall, or most at least prey will mate in the fall so that they're pregnant during the winter, meaning there's no new babies that need to survive the winter. And then, when spring comes and it starts to warm up, that's when the babies are born, and they all have babies at roughly the same time. So the pack can it becomes a priority of the pack to protect the children. And then the children get to grow up through the spring and summer. And then when it gets cold again, and if you do any deer hunting, you know that during hunting season, you'll speak of deers as they're 1.5, 2.5, 3.5 years old, because that's what they are. It's a year and a half since they were born, basically, because of the mating cycles. And most animals have that, and humans may have 100,000 years ago. It's very likely our women went into estrus in the fall. We got pregnant so that the babies were born when the weather started getting warmer, and so newborn babies didn't have to survive the winter. But we're so much more advanced than that, that it's not obviously not the case anymore. So who knows like what those drivers for testosterone were originally, but it's very likely the drivers for testosterone were aggressive natures, that we very likely needed to fight each other for the right to mate. And so there's all these things, and if you look at it that way, we've lost all that. We don't do hard aggressive work. It's if there's a correlation to that, then doing hard farm labor is probably a similar trigger in the body to produce testosterone. We don't do that. The foods we eat, we eat phytoestrogens, and all the soy stuff we eat. And so there's for whatever reason, male testosterone levels are on a real steady decline over the last 100 years or so. And who knows, maybe they were even higher before, but for basically when we first started getting real data on it, we see a slow decline. And so I think in 50 years, that's going to be a major issue. I think already you're seeing that, like the very low birth rates in some Asian countries like Japan, and you get like weird, not antisocial, but I don't know the word, anti-dating. Like you go to Japan and testosterone levels are real low. Well, those men aren't looking for mates. And so there's very low marriage rates, very low birth rates. And there's all this stuff going on that is not really studied because for whatever reason, testosterone is almost like a taboo subject, as far as the medical community is. But at this point, if you're in your mid 30s and you have a test level above 500, you're almost like you're an anomaly now. because people just don't anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I'd just like to point out too that we can now take that clip and we can get sponsored by National Geographic after that. So thank you, Justin, for the tutorial. Come on, talk about supplements, training, nutrition.
Big bull elephant with testosterone leaking out of his
mating
head.
Season. There's never a dull moment with Justin on the show. That was awesome. So all that, you're training for 2 years back in the swing of things. I know you're an accomplished like coach and run a gym as well. I'm just curious too, if we, get kind of going back to Justin was talking earlier about your technique and things. Can you walk through a couple segments of the heavy lifts, like have it be a meet or before getting on, like I think one thing would be interesting to hear about, maybe if we can start with, is like your mindset before those big lifts. Cause you talked earlier about, after the injury or seeing guys injured, like how did you kind of mentally get ready for that? I'm sure there's a lot of, or not a lot, but there's got to be a certain way you prepare if you're going to, I think the one clip here is 920 pounds, I think I'm looking at. So you just kind of walk us through like your thought process and your approach with that.
Yeah, I mean, I just would kind of try to tune everything out around me, and it was go to a very almost dark place where it's just gets so much aggression built up, like that was the whole thing with deadlift. Like if you want to deadlift a lot, you try to be as aggressive as possible. So I was really good about blocking out all the outside noise or everyone around me to where it was almost as if they weren't there. But the aggression was kind of the key. Like that was always the chip on my shoulder attitude is what really propelled my lifting for all those years. And if you didn't have that, you'd find a reason, to make it happen. You'd look for it. You'd find a reason to be motivated. You'd kind of always go in with that us against the world mentality of so anytime anybody slighted you, you used it for fuel.
Right.
Anytime anyone said anything or doubted you or any comment, I would glom onto and use it for fuel for months. And
was there any
light? And that propelled me,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I was going to say, is there anything early on that you hung on to get when you got started? I'm just curious if there's anything like that first put that chip there that comes to mind.
Honestly, I think what it was as pre-PEDs as a teenager, even because I was still like, that's when I was throwing weights around in the basement, freaking out. And that was before PEDs, a lot of that footage. And I think a lot of it was just like that teenage angst of that sexual motivation, really, of like, your testosterone levels are going up. You want to essentially, get a girlfriend or meet girls and stuff. And I think that was a big part of it. Just like that motivation will propel anybody at that age. That's like that you're in your prime. You're hitting puberty. You're feeling very aggressive and your libido sky high. And that was like rocket fuel. I couldn't replicate that now unless I took Tren, but Tren was about the only thing and that would take it up a notch even. But that was kind of what propelled me early on. So
it's funny you say that. We do the Troponin episodes, and on those we ask if your team lift angry or team lift happy. And the reason that really came about was because I remember that period when I started to lift. I mean, I wanted to start working out when I was like 8. I got a weight set in the basement. It was just all, for whatever reason, I was always fascinated by it. But all through the teenage years, it would all be about anger, or I would picture, a time like I wish I would have stood up for myself and I didn't, or I'd picture, something that happened on the football field or something that made me feel weak and pissed me off, and I never wanted to feel that way again. But then eventually that stopped happening. And then around the time, like when Joe and I would train, I was over that. I didn't have that angst anymore. And I remember having to try to find, and so mine turned to like team lift happy, basically. And I had to find a new, where it's like, okay, I'm not mad at the world. I like my life. I'm married. I love my wife. I have a baby at home. Everything's great. I can't, that anger isn't a fuel anymore. And so at that point I had to kind of try to find a way to transition. And then I turned it into like, well, I'm here because this is what I love. This is my, and so it was like a weird way to find a transition. And so if you look at like some of my old videos, I don't get like well, when I was younger, I would get all jacked up before I lift and stomp around, and kind of talk to myself. But then as I got, in my mid 20s, that wasn't there anymore. I got two little kids at home. I'm married. I got a home. Like I'm like, my life's awesome. What am I stomping around for? And then I would try to turn it into, like, well, I'm here because this is the one thing in my life that I love. Everything else you do in the day, I don't want to get up to an alarm clock for work. That sucks. I want to sleep in. I don't want to drive to work. Traffic sucks. I don't want to go to work. Work sucks. I don't want to pay bills. Bills suck. So then I realized, like, well, everything in my life sucks basically, except the gym. I love this. So then I turned it into like really like trying to remind myself, like, I get to do this. Everything else I do, paying bills, paying mortgages, filling my gas tank up when gas is sky high, all stuff I don't want to do. And so this is the one thing I'm doing for myself because I love it. So I'm going to make sure that I leave everything here. I don't leave anything in the tank. And it was like my transition from Team Lift Angry to Team Lift Happy.
Have you experienced anything like that, Pete? Or
That's exactly sums up my life too. I went from almost like, lifting angry all the time to losing that edge. And I knew then, I was like, it's just not the same anymore. I love it, but I don't have that chip. It's impossible. How are you supposed to have a chip when you're a married man with a kid and like your life is pretty good and you're just, I can't draw on anything to make me that mad anymore. And that just naturally kind of happened where it completely flipped to now where I try to lift, I'm happy. Like if I actually am pissed off, I would lift terribly.
Yeah.
So
same.
it's the transition I think every person goes through as they mature and get a little older.
yeah,
And it's I don't have anywhere near the interest I used to because of it, because that's what the people knew me for, like that anger and that aggression and everything, and that was the whole show. So now that that's not there, I've lost a lot of my following, but it's one of those things. You grow older, the new crop comes in of 20-year-olds, 25, and they're putting up even bigger numbers, and you're kind of the forgotten man, like Brandon Lilly and all those guys. No one even knows who they are.
Yeah.
So I'm like the washed up guy, older guy now, and it is what it is. You just roll with it.
yeah. Now you're you're obviously still moving some good weight, and you're mentioning earlier you have your gym right now. I mean, can you talk a little bit about just what you're doing outside of your lifting in the industry, and what do you have going on?
It's just way busier days than what it used to be, where it used to be just kind of sleep in as much as I wanted and train for 5 hours and, not many responsibilities, to now it's like life, kids, family, all that kind of stuff. Wake up usually weekdays, 4:30 a.m., open up the gym we have, real small gym. And it's kind of a labor of love. Like the gym doesn't really make money. It's just once you pay rent and utilities, there's not much left profit wise. But we love it. We love the community, so we do that. I'm here till 7:30 every night, weekdays. That's what a weekday looks like. I'm doing emails all day for my coaching, one-on-one coaching. Been doing that for 10 years. As far as getting people stronger, I don't do diet at all because Justin knows, and like I like to eat some things that are not so good. But I do that. I personal train people every day. So it's just like the days are jam packed. There's always something.
Yeah.
And then you get home at night, you get home after being at the gym for 14 hours. And it's like, okay, I got to do meal prep and then I got to get ready for the next day. And it's just, I'm not complaining. Like, I honestly, my lifestyle's, it's good. I enjoy it, but it's busy. It's way busier than it used to be. Responsibilities happen as you get older, bills, life changes. So,
Right.
Pete said something there about the gym, and being profitable. And I wish people who do train hard, I wish there was a way to get everyone to understand this. People get mad that Planet Fitnesses are everywhere. People get mad that Planet Fitness don't let you lift heavy, don't let you do deadlifts. But people don't understand how business works. People like us, we are the worst gym member. Why? Because we're there every day. We use the equipment. We wear down the equipment. We're the worst. We get the lowest return on investment possible. The Planet Fitness member, what do they get? They sign up to 10 different Planet Fitnesses. They go to 0 of them per month. So Planet Fitness gets their paycheck every single month, and there's 0 wear and tear on the equipment. And it sucks because that's the way gyms are going. And I don't think people really stop to think about why that is. When you want to know why there's no hardcore gyms anymore, it's because people who go to hardcore gyms expect their monthly fee to be lower than people who go to health clubs. You know, people pay $100 to go to some club because it has a pool, and they'll never go there. If you ask them to pay $100 a month for a powerlifting gym, they'll think you're an asshole. But the powerlifting, the gym is the gym that needs $100 a month members, because you guys are bending bars, you're breaking plates, you're wearing down platforms, you're rubbing the leather off of the benches, and the place with the pool that charges $100 a month, they only need $3 a month out of you, because all they need to do is restock the drink cooler twice a month, you know, because no one goes in and wears down the equipment. But it drives me crazy because no one thinks about that. And we're just our own worst enemy as far as the sport, you know, because the ones that actually train hard are the ones that expect free memberships or cheap memberships. And people, you know, like, I know several people who have 3 or 4 different gym memberships who have not stepped foot in any of those gyms in months. You know, and so those gyms are making pure profit on them, where people like us, we're there 5 days a week wearing down the equipment. You know, I wish there was a way to get that across to people, especially young people who don't understand business, but they don't get it.
Well, would you rather have like the 25-year-old powerlifter or like a 50-year-old businessman? It's no brainer. It's, you know, who's going to be more profitable and who's going to be in it for the long term and not be afraid to pay up and all that kind of stuff. And when you're in business, you see it. But if you're not, you have a whole different mindset. You're like, there's a lot more entitlement and things like that when you're not actually seeing the nuts and bolts of what goes into it. It's like, hey, we got a major rent check we have to cut every month, you know?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, Pete, like you talked about online coaching clients, you know, what does your typical clientele look like, and what's your mix normally? Is it normally powerlifters, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much all people, either half and half, 25 or 50% want to get stronger in general, not compete at all, and the other 50% compete. So it's always been a pretty even mix. Just that's the demographic. So been working with that group for 10 years, and like, you know, it's funny because people don't ask really anymore, but anytime anybody would ask me about nutrition, I'm like, I'm the last guy you want to go to for that. Like, I don't do that. I've never taken it that seriously except for like 12 weeks when I was with Justin. And that's like, I like to eat things, and I don't beat around the bush about it, but it's just people wanting to get stronger for the most part.
Yeah. And with that, like, can you walk through a little bit of what a program's like for you? Is it generally a certain period of time that you do? Is you know, how does that shake out? And is it all, you know, like, are there templates and tracking kind of their lifts as a percent of something, or how does that work?
Each week I send the program out for each person. You know, everything's different, everything's customized, obviously. And it's up to them how often they want to email me back. So some people email me every day, other people once a week. It just depends on the person. And I'll keep it rolling as long as they want to. And anytime you're in this industry, like, there's turnover, no matter how good of a job you do. You can't take it personal. There's going to be turnover. There's going to be some people who aren't going to, you know, do what they want, what you're supposed to do. They're not going to report back. They're not going to give you feedback. And that's just okay. It's motivation is fleeting in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
And even with me, like, I had a hard time, even with Justin, like, I got to a point where the motivation was fleeting. And so for me to continue to diet hard, it was fleeting. And I'll admit that. Like, that's no indictment on the coach. That just is part of the thing that happens. So you see a lot of it. You see turnover. It's part of the deal. But that's why you always have to kind of be relevant and be putting yourself out there, as much as sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes I just want to go disappear, but I have to keep being somewhat relevant, just to kind of keep up with turnover.
The motivation thing is weird. I kind of, this is not to turn it personal, but you know, everyone remembers when Tiger Woods had that issue with his wife, and, you know, and the affairs and everything, and kind of how his competitive level fell off after that. And I remember I was younger, and during that time I was 100% immersed in weightlifting. You know, I could not imagine a world where weightlifting wasn't the number one, number two, number three, number four priority of my life, basically, you know? And I remember thinking like, well, why isn't he good anymore? You know, what do you mean? How do you just lose that? You know, but it's a weird thing, but you can't really help it. You can't, you know, and that's what I try to tell clients is, you know, like you can't fake motivation. You know, well, you remember a time when powerlifting was your life, you know, and that's all you woke up thinking about it, and you stayed up late thinking about it. And when you woke up in the middle of the night to take a piss, that's what you were thinking about your deadlift that next day. But then when it goes away, it kind of goes away. It's a very weird thing, because, you know, I remember like the Tiger Woods example always stands out to me, because I just couldn't understand, like, how can you be the best in the world and now all of a sudden lose that focus? You know, like what else is there in your life? But, you know, I mean, and then it happened to me where, you know, all of a sudden one day I woke up and my first thought wasn't my workout that day. It was whatever else, something else, you know. And it's weird when it happens, and it's a difficult transition to make. And then it's a different transition you try to learn to navigate, where it's like, okay, this isn't, you know, I don't bleed this anymore, but it's still an important part of my life. How do I mix things together and be a good husband and be a good father and still train, even though training isn't the only thought in my mind? But it's a weird thing if you've been that passionate about something and you think it's going to be that way till the day you die, and then the rest of life happens, and you kind of have to find a new way to navigate it.